Good morning to everyone. Thank you for your participation in this event. To start the event, I needed to introduce you the head of the Department of Architecture of the University of Chieti-Pescara, Professor Lorenzo Pignatti. Lorenzo, you have to switch on.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this important event. For us, it's very important. My name is Lorenzo Pignatti. I am the director of the Department of Architecture at the University of Chieti-Pescara in Chieti-Pescara. On behalf of our rector, Professor Sergio Caputi, I really am very pleased to welcome everybody and to say that our university, the University Gabriele D'Annunzio, is very honored to have been selected to participate to this important event at Expo Dubai 2020. Pescara is a medium-sized city on the Adriatic coast, has a Department of Architecture since many years. And basically, we have been always looking towards East. One of our research interests has always been to establish a relationship with Eastern countries, either from the Balkan region, also from the Middle East, but also Professor Antonio Basti has had for many years a very important relationship with Dubai. So this is not new for us because, again, thanks to Professor Basti, we have had already opportunities to create academic and cultural and scientific relationship with the Emirates. For us, as I said earlier, the Expo in Dubai is very important because allows us to somehow establish a new relationship, somehow present our university, our department, present what we do at our school. Specifically, I'm very happy because we're not alone. It's not only professors and students from our department, but these 2 hours in Dubai will be structured in such a way where there will be a continuous dialogue, a continuous confrontation and discussion with colleagues from the Emirates. And I would like to start thanking those people, those professors, but some of them came from British University in Dubai, Cristiano located from Harriet Watt University, also in Dubai, Professor Apostolos Kyriatis from Abu Dhabi University, Lina Ahmad from Zayed University Abu Dhabi, Marco Souza from Zayed University Abu Dhabi, and Anna Cornaro, Professor Anna Cornaro, chair of the Department of Architecture at the University in Dubai. Well, this is particularly interesting for us because, as I said earlier, it will not be just a discussion among ourselves or the visitors that may come to our tables, but basically we have a set of people, that professors, people that have done work, that teach and do research in the Emirates. So somehow whatever we can suggest will be discussed and will be somehow confronted with position, maybe different positions, or maybe we will share the same positions that we can somehow present. Nevertheless, I not only our kind of guests, but I would like to thank all the people from the University of Gabriele D'Annunzio that are there, starting from Antonio Basti and Filippo Angelucci, that were the main coordinators of this project. They presented the project that was accepted. So I really want to thank Antonio Basti and Filippo Angelucci for the work they have done both time ago when they presented the project and now. There is also Professor Massimo Angrilli. There is also Professor Domenico Potenza there, but there is a large number of younger assistant or PhD students or research assistants. Giuffreda, Grosso, Giulio Girasante, Virginia Lisi, Matteo Adeta, and Lorenzo Pellegrini. These two, the last ones are connected like me from internet, but the first four are all there. They will be working at the working tables. Let me just finish with this. We just came out from a very difficult period, pandemic. Every country, every single person has suffered of that period. The human relationship, the academic relationship were somehow confined by discussing behind the screen. Now, fortunately, you guys are present there, and you can certainly confront yourself person to person. But what I want to say is that this pandemic has somehow left us something important because right now in Italy, in Europe, there is what is called the recovery plan, and the main two things, the main two items, the main two issues of the recovery plan are innovation and green transition. So I think that the pandemic has left us two directions to go. Two main routes to follow, which are the routes of innovation and green transition. And also, you probably know that yesterday in Rome we had the G20, and again, one of the major issues of discussion in the G20 among the 20 partners of the most influential countries in the world has been climate change. So we are presenting now, my colleagues will present now ideas about public spaces, about open spaces, right? So we somehow got accepted the challenge to discuss open spaces in Dubai. So to somehow confront our culture about open spaces, Italian culture about those open spaces that has a long tradition, right? But certainly right now we cannot export the Italian tradition and culture about the open spaces. We have to somehow come to terms with very important new issues, right? Again, that are mostly somehow addressed by the issues of climate change and green transition. So we're very happy that we will be able to put together again, what I will call the Italian tradition of Italian space, but I'm not sure if that word is correct, with new concerns that are certainly relevant in a place like Dubai, where the climate conditions are very different from the Italian conditions, and where the kind of issue of innovation and technology is definitely very relevant. So I know that only 2 hours, so I will stop. But please have a very productive moment. I hope that the working tables will produce interesting ideas that we'll be able to share in the future. And please consider that the faculty, that the guests, the faculty members from the British University, from the University from Abu Dhabi, from Zayed, our guest could be our guest in Pescara. So I think that from today we should really start a very kind of close exchange and relationship among ourselves. Thank you, Antonio, and please go ahead with your intensive 2 hours.
You, Lorenzo. Thanks to our director, Lorenzo Pignatti, for his presentation. I have only 3 minutes for a second introduction to the work of today. Mediterranean Urban Design and Regeneration. Why it is titled and what is the main goal of this project. It is important a precision. The original structure, the original organization of this program when with Antonio Basti and the Department of Architecture we organized this event, was completely different in the articulation of works before the second return of pandemic emergency. We organized a more long experience based on workshop theme for 2 weeks and with a lot of tables. But the main goals of this experience is based on the idea of to constitute and start a new experience of educational and universitarian experimentation in a sort of resilient manner. I think that today it is important our presence in this classroom, because I think that we are winning the pandemic and we are starting the winning act before 2 strong and terrible years. We organized the work with 7 tables, 7 working tables. In each working tables, there are our PhD young researcher from Gabriele D'Annunzio University of Chieti-Pescara, our guest professors, students from Dubai universities, and there are also completely online working tables with Caterina Palestini, Andrea Di Cinzio, Lorenzo Pellegrini from Italy. The challenge is to experiment this form of educational process, and in fact we expect from this experience not really a project, a definition of a final project, but a meta-design process. This is the main goal of this experimentation. Meta-designer process, because the working tables team are working from July 2021, and Stefania Grosso we will present the first results of these activities. We prepare in a manner of didactical serious game. Okay. In a didactical serious game, cards, tools for exploring probable, possible, and preferable scenario, and at the same time, first visions related to the possibility of intervention on the 2 case study areas. We select 2 case study areas referred to principal differentiation between our idea, Italian and European idea of public space, but really there is no public space, but completely open space that we redefine or rethink as void, infrastructural, in-between spaces, buffer zone, and so on. And I think that 3 minutes are closed. The successive Stefania Grosso, our PhD and junior researcher, for the presentation of case study areas.
Okay, we can go on. So good morning to everybody. I'm Stefania Grosso. I'm a fellow research from University D'Annunzio in Pescara. You can go on. Okay, where? So the city that we choose for this workshop is Dubai. Dubai is a city that has grown fast. 40 years ago, as you can see from this slide, most of today's Dubai was nothing but just desert. But now the same space is home for more than 2 million people from 200 nations and for a bustling economy. Creating this city has been no easy task in an environment that is neither hospitable to people, caused the high temperature, the scarce rainfall, the drought, and the high humidity. The research started with a comparison between Dubai and Rome as a city that we know obviously better. So the comparison between the two cities has evidence that Dubai in reality is a little more than 3 times the size of Rome. But at the same time, we noticed that the number of inhabitants in Dubai is only 500,000 more than the number of inhabitants in Rome. Then we did also consideration about the urban development. So in Dubai we have a linear urban development, while in Rome we have a concentric development. And then this is a really synthetic and schematic section that we use in reality to analyze the vertical development on the city. This section has highlighted the presence of the skyscrapers, but also the presence of a large interstitial empty spaces in between the buildings. And these spaces are for us the opportunity space for the city. And these spaces are considered are the goal of our meta design project. So challenges. We started to do consideration on an urban scale. Virginia. So on an urban scale, the strategy is to work on a network of urban open spaces by deepening after the issue related in reality just 2 case studies. The 2 case studies are representative of the urban condition of Dubai. The first one is a space candidate to be a space of a relationship space, and the second one is a space candidate to be a connection space. So the first area is the Dubai World Trade Center, that it's an area near the World Trade Center metro station and entirely bordered by a large infrastructure. The area we will deal with an area is defined from 2. Okay, this is the first line. Then if you go on, we can see in detail we will be the area of the meta project. Okay, it's blocked. So, okay, the other one? Okay, so the space we will deal with is defined by 2 heads held together by a filament. That is a kind of open gallery with commercial activities. This is an analysis about, the infrastructure, building, and the surrounding of the area. And here in detail, the building around the area. Challenges. We started to do consideration using photo, also because, everything is completely new for us. And our idea is that we can start to have a consideration about, buffer zones that are near the commercial activities. Or another idea can be to work to this large and empty space. Or again, we can do consideration about, this contraposition of this huge horizontal floor and the vertical development. Also, the facade of the building can be, in some way involved in the final vision. And okay, here you have 3D that can be used as, we can use this to sketch on, to start with idea on during our discussion on the table. Again, this. Mall of Emirati is the second area, the second case study. So the Dubai Mall is the world's largest destination for shopping, entertainment, and leisure, and it's located to the world's tallest building that is Burj Khalifa. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct. This area, it's a completely different urban condition because it's a really compact block that is connected to the metro station by a suspended walkway that we highlight through these diagrams. So the urban condition is completely different from the precedent case studies. Here we can see around the area the presence of numerous hotels, but also, we have an area that can be a good opportunity to develop idea here, that is the proximity to the mall of Emirati Park. So also for this area, we started to do the previously consideration, no? So which can be the goal for this area. Here we don't have, the condition that we have in the area of the World Trade Center. So we don't have this continuous plateau. We don't have this continuous open space, but we have a really more fragmented condition. Other consideration that we did, the presence of the streets that in some part of the area interrupted the continuity of the space. So the idea is that maybe we can, in this case, work considering the potential of this multiple layered condition. This is a 3D that we can also obviously use to start with discussion on the table. And this is, a view of the actual condition. After this presentation, with this winning strategy to improve the open space in Dubai, what function should the open space accommodate? And what are the devices to be proposed in the open space? So we just decided to put question. Obviously, we don't need to go in detail to each of the question, but it's something. This presentation in reality is just a way to give an input to your work. And so now we have just 54 minutes to work, and probably it's time to start. So good work really to everybody, and see you after 1 week.
Thank you to Stefania for the good presentation. I have only a little advice for our guests in connection on YouTube channel. We will return on streaming at the end of the working on the table. Thank you very much. Have a good work. contribuire con una cultura progettuale, diciamo, italiana, scusate, fatemelo dire,
noi siamo qui per questo.
a degli aspetti che noi abbiamo già affrontato nel corso del tempo, e però mi confermavano, insomma, almeno la Cornaro, che cominciano a diventare degli aspetti di sensibilità anche per la città di Dubai, quindi
Sì, anche perché in questa zona del mondo che non è solo Dubai, insomma, questa
certo,
che gravita su Expo è una zona molto vasta, la domanda di nuova edilizia nei prossimi anni è enorme.
io mi auguro
Una chiave di sostenibilità,
assolutamente, sì, mi piaceva, certo, sostenibilità energetica, idrica anche, no?
quindi noi abbiamo, in Italia abbiamo un'opportunità veramente molto interessante.
Ma notavo con piacere che il Pavilione ospita anche questa proposta di nuove vegetazioni customizzate per i primi aridi che potremmo noi anche, come dire, utilizzare per le soluzioni progettuali, no? Creare questo...
Tutto il padiglione è costruito con soluzioni di nuova abitabilità, di nuova tutto i materiali biologici con cui è costruito, alla climatizzazione naturale dell'aria, al sistema di elettrificazione, quindi carbon free totalmente, molto innovativa fatta da Enel, tutto quello che vedete, toccate, è tutto disegnato e progettato in termini artistici, creativi, per essere sono già sul mercato della nuova edilizia, sono prodotti già sul mercato.
È una grande opportunità, speriamo, come dire, che abbia un seguito questa iniziativa e ci permetta di dare un contributo.
Ieri avevamo qui i sindaci d'Italia che sono venuti numerosi, che hanno tutti portato i progetti di ristrutturazione di rigenerazione urbana, per esempio la ristrutturazione delle città di mare. Mi interessano moltissimo, queste sono operazioni di marketing e progettuale molto importanti.
Anche sui water abbiamo anche tante, diciamo,
Come diceva il collega, l'architetto italiano che insegna qui, ci sono poi molte iniziative di promotori immobiliari che costruiscono quartieri che hanno anche una dimensione più umana, con assi pedonali, pedonalizzati, c'è una voglia di città,
città e anche di sostenibilità sociale, elemento sociale, culturale,
che è tutto nella cultura europea.
Interessante confronto nei prossimi giorni qui tra
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, we are finished the activity of the designing conceptualization of our proposals. And I have the opportunity to introduce the commissar of Italian Pavilion at the Expo Dubai. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to say hello and welcome you here. For us, your work, your contribution to our pavilion is very, very important for many reasons that you might imagine, including the fact that Expo is themed on around sustainability and themed yesterday on the crucial central role of new cities, new urban areas as the actor of the new economies around the world, the new sustainability, the new innovation, the new resilience of real estate infrastructure in the next few years, capable of resisting to environmental shocks or health problems and so forth. Second reason why I'm very happy to have you here, looking forward to your contribution, is the fact that this pavilion is entirely made to demonstrate the skills, the competence, the excellences of the Italian industry, real estate sector, digital sector, electrical, and so forth, in creating the new habitat, the new sustainable, energy-efficient habitat. This is the first carbon-free pavilion ever made. It's the first pavilion, is the only pavilion in Expo, as you can see, that doesn't have a facade, but has these cords made of 17 kilometers of cords, made recycling 4 million bottles, plastic bottles from the oceans. The roof is made of 3 big hulls painted with paints produced with food waste. You will be walking on the orange color outside. That's the paintings done with the orange peels wasting. You will see walls and ceilings made of coffee beans waste. You will see the electricity system, the lighting system of the pavilion capable of reacting not only to the quantity of light coming from the outside, but also to the number of visitors around, and even to the emotional status of people around. Why? Because that's the new products that the Italian industry, electrical industry, is proposing to the market, bringing now to the marketplace for new housing where lighting will be not only smart, but very intelligent, in the sense that it will react, and that will make it the most efficient lighting system we ever had before. You will see that thanks to these cords, we are the only pavilion with no artificial climatization of air. Our oxygenation and cleaning of air is done by natural algae and plants. And again, those algae and plants are now in the marketplace to substitute carbon dioxide generating artificial climatization mechanism, and so forth. So you will see this is a model that we propose to the world, to the Expo, to show what we can do in Italy for new, sustainable, innovative real estate product. Plus, let me add that this requires skills in planning, in designing, in constructing, in building. We have experienced ourselves the difficulties of bringing such an innovative model into a place where it's never done before, it's never been constructed before. So the other opportunity is to fill up the gap, the skill gap, the competence gap in making all this possible, commercially viable, competitive, and I have to tell you, cheaper than any traditional pavilion would have been if we did it the old way. The old way. So there is also a know-how demand, which will be an interesting opportunity for all of you, for your universities in Italy and here. And finally, my final point is that all of this is the result of cooperation. So what strikes me of your meeting today is finding so many universities from America, from the United Arab Emirates, from Italy, we're missing some countries, from because I think the collaborative mode, the collaborative approach that is required to bring all this sustainable innovation to the marketplace and to the people has to be part of partnerships, understandings, exchange of experiences, and the formation of students, young students, in a multidisciplinary skill approach, because all of what I'm trying to explain to you is the result of different skills, different competence built together, integrated. They produce what we claim as the claim of our pavilion, the beauty that connects people, which is not an aesthetic beauty, even though I like the pavilion, but it's not an aesthetic beauty. It's the beauty that Italy can generate by integrating diversities, different territories, different culture, different materials, and so forth. That's the beauty that connects people in our mind. So that's why I'm really proud and happy to welcome you here and treasure your contribution a lot in the next few months when we will keep discussion going with other countries, other pavilions, and other universities. Thank you for coming again.
Well, now we can continue to the exposition of the working from the table, and I introduce a colleague, Professor Domenico Potenza, that is the chair of this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. First of all, I would like to thank my colleagues who preceded me in the work presentation, Professor Lorenzo Pignatti, our Dean, Professor Filippo Angelucci, and Antonio Basti, who curated this event, and Professor Massimo Angrilli. And also I want to thank the Italian Pavilion organization. So I also want to thank our special guests who wanted to participate in the activities of this very short workshop. And as you know, we worked together on discussion tables with architects, PhD students, and professors from our university, and also for other professors from Dubai University. Now I would like to move on the presentation of the activities projects, but these are just the first ideas elaborated on the working tables. You know, we just talked about the topic of our discussion is to understand if and what role the project has for the urban space, urban public space, urban open space in a city like Dubai. I think that it's very important to understand that these are not a final result, but an exploration, a sort of exploration for possible development, also with our guests who participated in working tables. So I think we can start to present the result of work on table. We only have 3 minutes for each presentation. The first one, I think, is the table number 1 is from Professor Massimo Angrilli, Professor Cristiano Lucchetti, and architects Valentina Ciuffreda. I asked to Valentina to speak about his projects. Please, Valentina.
I don't know if the presentation, okay. Yeah. Okay, first of all, I want to thank Cristiano Lucchetti for his contribution to debate of the Mall of Emirates area. The area is characterized by 2 starting conditions. One is the presence of the Mall of Emirates Park and the subway station, and the second is the isolation of the buildings from the context caused by the large roads that surround it. In fact, they use an upper level to create a direct connection between the mall and the subway station. There is also a contrast between the arrangement of the area adjacent to the building on the south side and the area adjacent to the building on the north side in front of the park. So, our strategy is an evolution from the car city to the walk-in city, according to the contemporary projects for the city, against the old master plan of John Harris. And also create a continuum between the public space, the buffered zones outside the building, and the building itself. Suggesting from some Italian experience of internal spaces transforming public space, for example, the Fondaco dei Tedeschi in Venice. At last, we ask ourselves what we can do, and our answer are to create characteristic spaces for each categories of final users, for example, domestic space, family-friendly, create anchors to activate city work, to base the landscape design on local climate and geography, like arid softscapes, designing open spaces taking into account the temporality of different uses, for example, the prevalence of nocturnal landscape. And in particular for this area, the park should be in functional relationship with the city, overcoming the decorative role played today. We can use water as a driving component of the park's regeneration, and we have to add in new function, for example, leisure or restoration, to transform these islands to an open system, an urban open system. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. We can go on to the second table. Is from Professor Apostolos Kyriatis. I apologize the pronunciation, but and architect Stefania Grosso, PhD architect Stefania Grosso, e Riham Ziyad Sadet is a student from Dubai University. Stefania, 3 minutes.
Good morning again to everybody, and really thanks to Professor Apostolos and Riam, because we have a really, really interesting debate on the table. Also because Riam is from Palestine and the professor is from Greece. So in reality, you know, we discuss about the open space, not just in Dubai, but with a really open view. So if you can go on with the presentation. So from neglected to reclaimed space. So the area that we choose is the World Trade Center. You can go on. I have to go on, sorry. So we started with this metaphoric idea. So with the comparison of an Italian cathedral and the World Trade Center. So the idea that, okay, both of these buildings have this idea of monumentality, but in Italy, you know, the building is supported from the idea of this big public space that in reality we don't have here. We started with analysis of the urban condition, and the idea was really to reply here the monumentality, but not working with the vertical development, but with a really huge space that in some way we can give back to the city, using also part of the area that actually is a parking. So the idea is also to consider that the World Trade Center is a really important building for Dubai. It's a really meeting point for not just people from Dubai, but from all the world. So it's important to have an element that can really support the open space. So the idea is to have this big rectangular, that it's an open space, and also the reuse the traces of the line of the park as element to redefine and redesign the space. In addition, we did consideration about, you know, shadows and the influence of the sun. That is obviously important. And at the end, you know, the idea is again a kind of metaphoric idea. In Italy, we have portico. And probably to better use this space will be interesting to have an element that in some way can be a kind of portico, but not flexible. It can be a big element that can help person to reach the main entrance of the World Trade Center, but at the same time it can be considered as an element really flexible. So the idea is to really revitalize the space through materials, through consideration about, you know, the climate condition, the influence of the sun. But the main idea is really to re-give back to the city a space that can be an open space for the person. And okay, here we started to go a little bit in detail with elements that can be that need to be considered for thermal comfort, like high solar and things that I already cited before. And this is, okay, just the start of our work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Stefania. And go on the third table from mine work, the work of Professor Marco Souza and architect PhD students Giulio Girasante. Giulio, please. 3 minutes. Yep.
Thank you, and thank you especially from Marco Souza, that is not Italian, but he has just the name Italian. Fake Italian, yes. Okay, we spend a lot of time in our table to speak between the difference between Italian or European way to see the public space and Arabian one. And we can see that European way is like a section, a stratification of story in time and in space. Arabian way is an addiction of function like infrastructure or commercial center and anything more. And we can see the public space like a plan, an horizontal stratification. Is not like a section like in the Italian way. Also Dubai, the vertical stratification of Dubai, the important stratification of culture in a very short of time, because it is a really young city. And we talk about a D1, that is a special room in the typical house of Dubai, where the guest can enter. And inside is the space just for family. And this is important to understand the difference it doesn't work. No. Yep. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, something is changing. Can you go to the other one? To the third one? Okay. Something is changing in the area of Burj Khalifa, for example, where the people like to stay in the open air, where the magnet, the attraction of the fountain or the boulevard that they created across the lake take the person to stay in the open air. You can... Two. Okay. And we try to repost this study on the area of the mall, individuating magnet, that is the crossing of the road, the lake, and the attraction to enter inside the mall, and creating a connection between this buffer zone and the magnet, and the generators that must create attraction to people. Okay, just this. Thank you.
Thank you, Giulio. Table number 4, Professor Filippo Angelucci, Professor Bassam Abdelkarim, and PhD students, architects, Virginia Lucy. Virginia. 3 minutes also for you.
Good morning. Okay. On our table, we talk about a slogan that is the enhancement of the user's outdoor experience. And we work on 3 main challenges. The thermal comfort outdoor due to the high temperature, the high humidity, the accessibility because the roads are not designed for pedestrian and cyclists, and the high power consumption because of the high cooling requirement. And we worked according to the SDG development goals. We can see the most important that we want to respond, and especially in particular we work on 3 levels on the design project. To improve social sustainability and conviviality of the public space. Our strategy works on the probable level, that is the currency scenario and evaluation without any project of development. the possible level of strategy, that is a first level of design definition, limited to a simple configuration of the space, and the last, that is the preferred level, that is an ideal but not utopian project. And we talk about some ideal configuration of the space. For example, talking about the irrigation, that is an important problem of this area. And we, according to our process of serious game, we show all the cards that shows the device, and we try to improve these cards, drawing a new card that is a PV in integrated shading device, so we can collect the solar power and generate also air movement under the PV, so we can have shading, air movements, and to improve the comfort of the users outside the PV. And working on this device, but also on another device at different level, we can enhance outdoor users, and our suggestion at the end is to provide the social connectivity and multiculturality thanks to the thermal comfort of the spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next table from Professor Lina Ahmad, PhD student Matteo Abita, who presented the work, and Koltom Shakshir, student from Dubai University.
Okay, I sent you an email with the presentation number 5. Okay, sorry. The presentation of the table number 5, please. It is a PowerPoint. Ah, sì, sì, sì. Matteo Abita. Matteo.abita@univac.it. Point it. Yeah. Okay, if you prefer, we can talk about. You can go with the 6th presentation, and I try to fix the problem with him.
Okay. But 6th one is from Italy. We have to ask if the connection is really on. Okay. From Italy, Professor Caterina Palestini, PhD students Lorenzo Pellegrini, and architects Amedeo Minischetti. I think that Lorenzo Pellegrini speech about work, also Andrea Di Cinzio. I'm sorry, Andrea. who present?
I will.
Okay. Lorenzo, please, 3 minutes also for you.
Morning, everyone from Pescara. Really sorry we are not there. If we can share, okay, the screen. Okay, the Italian table, that's number 6, made some consideration about the WTC, the World Trade Center area. And we thought that these, thinking to some reference from the 17th century Italian architecture, that's the idea of an ephemeral space, like a theatrical and dramatical device. that was used to be set in public spaces in Italy, squares in front of palaces and churches, from architects like Maccaruzzi in Venice, the San Felice in Naples, or Borromini himself in Rome. And these were devices that were temporary and were set up in few days and destroyed after the festival or after the happening. What is the purpose of our research? Is to involve the community in a special metamorphosis related to the events and the environmental needs of the public spaces. And what is the result that we aim to achieve? Is an installation, a temporary architecture that can generate suggestions, atmospheres, microclimates, changing in a flexible space, agile and sustainable way with eco-sustainable materials. Next slide, please. So we prepare like a concept. What could it be in a few 50 minutes that we had to set it up? We just create this photomontage, this patchwork of what was a drawing from the San Felice architecture from the 17th century. What could it be in some area with like WTC, with some other temporary device, like could be all the yearly festival they had in the Maxi in Rome, like this installation on the left, or we thought even other contemporary samples like the Burning Man in California or the Serpentine Pavilion in London. They are all temporary samples, actual to our samples. Next one. So we did a quick analysis of the area. We wanted to create immediately this theatrical device. So we thought the main square, the 20,000 square meter area in front of the WTC main entrance is a connection space between the main route, that is the parking route, where all the taxis and the cabs stops to land the vehicles coming, and the WTC metro station from the highway. And so this is an important connection that also leads to the other area in the north area of the WTC where the main tower is. So we need some sort of corso tent that recalls the culture of the desert tent from the Emirates, can provide shades. We can make some landscape design and create some landmark that actually is recognizable as main entrance of the WTC, that actually is like an understated main entrance. Next one, please. So we set it up like a quick sketch. Don't think of it like a project, but it's like a vision. We call it meta project actually. So it's like this big tent, like a double height space that we could still use like exhibition space, because actually the square in front of the WTC is still used, not just like a passing space, walk-through space, but we saw that sometimes they use for quick exhibitions, like an outdoor exhibition of the main halls, indoor halls. So where people can stand, can wait for friends, something can happen, and not everybody has to go directly from the cab stops, the taxi stop, from the WTC metro station, running through this very hot and heated square, but create a really close to the other team portico, but in a more flexible and temporary way, with some device that is not like concrete, but is more flexible with tents, textiles, and fabrics. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. And last one, Matteo. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry for the previous problem. And I will show you the work of table number 5, represented also by Professor Lina Med, Kulthum Shakshir, and Simona Mongelli. And first of all, we summarized our ideas for the World Trade Center and the Mall of Emirates through these key topics. Okay, the first thing was to invest and was to profit of these outer spaces, like spaces in which we can investing and waiting time. So the mean is that people can have some services, but can also meet other people, and at the same time, according to the difficulties of climate, so we wanted to increase thermal comfort, like different devices, shading devices, so use also direction of wind, cooling diffusion devices, and plantation, and also through adaptable structures, so structures that could be movable or foldable, so as to not make a space static but dynamic. And at the same time, it was important congregation, and the interpretation of tradition. Indeed, we started from this image that was proposed by Professor Hamed. About some settings that we are used in the Emirates, in the outer spaces of home, in which people can stay together, especially in the evening. But according also to other other ideas, especially the direction of wind that is oriented through the direction northwest. We propose some bubbles that we can use in these outer spaces. Bubbles that at the base could be could have permeability, so people can go inside, but can go easily pass through. And at the same time, we can also make some cooler spaces outside. And for example, with this sketch, we try to summarize these ideas. And also with the plantations that could be insert inside and outside the space. And this bubble could also be built with a foldable or movable structures. And all for the other side, so the we thought at the beginning bubbles, especially for the World Trade Center, and for the Mall of Emirates, we thought that it was better to insert, for example, structural trees to make shadow at the base, and so people can pass through with the pathways that are oriented in the same direction of the northwest direction of the wind. And we make some speeches and some dialogues about these ideas, and these were our main results. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. So many interesting suggestions, many interesting consideration about also the difference from European public and space and Arabian. I don't know if I can tell Arabian open space. I'm not sure. But I want to ask also the opinion, also the consideration of our guests that we thanks for their proposal, for their how can I say, for their work with us. The first one is Professor Bassam Abdelkarim. I think that you can go on our table, and also for you, we have only 3 minutes for your comments.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm not preparing anything, so I don't think I'll take 3 minutes. But I think everyone has touched down on the most important elements, identifying that the biggest issue we have here is essentially the weather, and that extremely limits how much people can actually work outside and what are the activities that they can do outside. The solutions that have been provided are very good. They're all trying to reduce the impact of the outside conditions. You cannot mitigate it totally because of the hot climate. You cannot do this through passive strategies. The best thing that we have seen, as a lot of people have already done this, is through shading devices, trying to enhance outdoor conditions, maybe through vegetation, and maybe even incorporating some renewable energy to provide more ventilation. The issue that was raised about the integration between the design of either the Mall of Emirates or the World Trade Center and its surrounding was also very important, where it was shown that in Italy, most of the growth was organic, so the city grew naturally, while in Dubai, because it grew in a very quick pace, it was actually more structured. So we had distinct elements that were designed at specific periods of time, and unfortunately, the initial phases of Dubai they focused more on the buildings and cars / cities, roads, without much emphasis on the people themselves, the ability to be able to move and the ability to be able to walk or communicate properly in terms of proper outdoor conditions. Now, this has been revised, or this is being taken into consideration in new developments, but rehabilitating existing designs that did not include this into their consideration is an important concept. And both the two examples that were shown today are of those type. Both Mall of Emirates and Dubai World Trade Center were built before the concept of, connectivity and the ability of people to communicate was taken into consideration. So the proposals that were made, they can help and mitigate some of those issues, and hopefully with a little bit more detailed studies, we can reach to things which can be implemented in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next one, Cristiano Lucchetti, Professor Cristiano Lucchetti from Edinburgh University in Dubai. Prego, Cristiano.
Thank you very much for the invitation. First of all, thanks for this opportunity to be here. Well, I'll be very short, and I can only repeat myself on one specific topic, which is about understanding the peculiar identity of local public spaces. As I can see, coming from Italy, we have in mind an idea of what a public space is, but here in the UAE and across the countries in the Gulf, public spaces are very different, and they exist starting from a very different approach. The concept of public space doesn't really exist. Everything is very private. And so sometimes we can find private-owned public spaces, and at the same time we find another category that I can call some sort of informal public spaces that are not really designed to be public space, but because there is a need for public space, then they're used as a public space. So between these two main families of public space, there is a tension in the society, how it's being used by the society, by very specific final users. So these are all kind of factors that should be, I think, introduced in the research from the very early stage, because somehow the technical aspects can be translated from our knowledge that we apply in different countries, even if the weather is different, if the climate is different, we can think of shading devices and so on. But we really, I think that we really need to understand what are the identity of these public spaces with a preliminary analysis on these subjects, and then build up a content that will be applied in the design process afterwards. And thank you very much again.
Thank you, Cristiano. Thank you for your speed also. We talk about this different culture and different climate from Europe and Arabian, and we talk about this with Apostolos Kyriatis. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry.
I have to change my name. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's been wonderful to be here. We have been discussing on our project how cities work. I will second what Cristiano just mentioned. Those cities are made from scratch on a tabula rasa based on modernist Cartesian logic driven by automobiles, by cars, and at the same time built later on through postmodernist images, image generation procedures that pushed especially Dubai to what it is today. So we tried to come up with an idea of how such public spaces like the one next to World Trade Center could be able to find metaphors between this residual space, dead space, non-space that we have there, to the theatrical place that we have in the European public spaces. And the metaphor that we found was this cathedral, this axial entrance towards either the cathedral or, in this case in Dubai, of the financial center of the city. So we were able to find this metaphor, we'll move with that, propose this car-dominated mobility to be transformed into shadows, into dynamism, into movement, and produce something that would allow people to reclaim space that was lost. No need for a program. There is absolutely no need for a program. The demographics here are completely different, so everybody would just enjoy spaces without cars for them to roam around and explore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, Professor Bassam Abdelkarim. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Professor Lina Ahmad. Yeah. Lina, please.
It's okay. Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. It was lovely to be here and engage in the discussion. What we discussed was the effect we get in the use of the urban space when you increase the thermal comfort, and how can the use of that space extend throughout the term and throughout the year in these harsh weather conditions by just increasing the thermal comfort in the various, whether passive or intelligent ways. And another discussion we had is the ephemeral use of spaces, and going back to the tradition of where the spaces are categorized and classified, the public spaces classified into zones of public, semi-public, and private within the big private space, and how the culture investigates itself and permeates in the use of these public spaces, and how the programs get generated very much by the society, and that kind of people that are using this public space. So all of these aspects, I think, are really important to take in consideration when designing and reflecting. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next one is Professor Marco Souza. Marco, I have no difficulty to pronunciate your name.
Thank you. I think I'll be brief because I think everybody, all my colleagues have touched the subjects pretty closely. I think that probably one of the things that we talked about, also my advice to all the PhD candidates, is that to look at the context. Context is king, and the history. The idea of what Professor Cristiano talked about, the idea of having a private culture, which is extremely private culture, and then the idea of public space is just so contradictory. It's just completely at different points in the spectrum. So please look at the culture, but at the same time, think about how we're also living in a city which is composed of almost the whole world. I remember I was talking to someone last week, and they described Dubai as being the capital of the world. So at the same time, all these different cultures coming in, conglomerating in this space. What do they want? Their public space, their version of public space is different to your version, to somebody else's, from a different part of the world. So it's a very difficult job. But all these investigations will give you clues of what should come through, and obviously the climate plays an important role as well. But thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And at the end, Professor Anna Cornaro. She is a chair of Department of Architecture in American University in Dubai. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Having brainstorming on the complexity of the city is very important. Sometimes we think that Dubai has no complexity for the fact that we live here, but then in this occasion we discovered that is our mindset, maybe. I have a general comment that probably is also linked to what Professor Souza was saying, that we have to think really deeply about the context where we are in, and part of this context includes also the means of transportation that we are using when we experience a specific place. So I think in both cases, for all the areas, the people has a different perception depending on the means of transportation that is using. So the vision of the Mall of Emirates by car is very different, and the experience of approaching the Mall of Emirates by car is very different than approaching the mall by metro. If you come by metro, for example, is a totally interior experience. While if you come with your own car, you have an experience. And if you come with a taxi, you have another experience. And if you use the valet parking, is again another experience. This is not just, and investigating this is possible also to discover that the key is not only the mean of transportation, but also the layer of population where you are in. I mean, a certain layer of the population is using the metro, another layer of the population is using cars, another layer is more comfortable with the valet parking. So these create awareness, I think, of the complexity of the city and how you have to think your space as an intersection of all the layers of the population. And I think that this should be always the aim of a project whenever you design something in Dubai. Sorry, then very quickly, I have two comments on each of the area. Specifically, I think, and we discussed on this in our table, for the Mall of Emirates, a very interesting side is the south side, where there is an entire city behind the mall that is totally separated by the life of the mall itself. And the separation is made by the bulky parking of the mall. So I think that can be interesting to think, first of all, about different solutions for the ground parking and a kind of porosity between the mall and the part at the rear of the mall, where there is already a pedestrian life going on. So I think it would be very interesting to link them. For the other area, some of the presentation already pointed the aspect of or the metaphor of the monument. I think in that case, we are really at the presence of for sure two monuments. One is the history of Dubai, that is the tower of the World Trade Center, that is a young building because it's dated 1474, I think, but for Dubai is the past of the city. And on the other side, there is the new Museum of the Future. And that axis where many of the groups were working on. I think that recently took a completely different meaning exactly because at the end of this axis, you have now a different vision that is not only the vision of the Emirates Tower, but also the vision of the Museum of the Future. So I think that the metaphor is something to develop because it's not only the metaphor of the monument, but also the metaphor of this city that has a young past, but is looking at the future. So I think that can be a good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are at the end, and we would also to ask Professor Massimo Angrilli for a final comment of this very interesting working day. And it's possible, what possible work we can do in the future. Okay, Massimo.
Grazie. So thank you, everyone. As Deputy Director, I can only do what my director said before. Lorenzo, are you there? So
Yes, I'm here.
I should repeat what you just said before, that we are in a phase of starting a collaboration. This is the hope, at least. The idea is that this workshop should be a kickoff of collaboration, a network of universities, launching maybe a new research, we don't know how, but with your help maybe we can think about it. So today we initiate a process in this context, which is of course very branded context because it's Italian and it's let's say made in Italy, the idea of made in Italy. But we don't want to be here as Italians that are so, how can I say, not humble to listen to the context, not humble to understand the differences between our culture and the Middle East, because this is the main point in my opinion. Talking about open spaces, talking about public spaces here in Dubai, in my opinion, is like a stress test for the concept of public space, in a sense, because we have very harsh condition in terms of climate, in terms of the scale of the city in itself, in the sense, in terms of the metropolis that are trying to detach from the people, from the human scale, with these large infrastructure networks and so on. So it's kind of stress test for the notion of public space. But this is the point. This is really interesting, how to overcome these huge difficulties in a metropolis which is so big, which is a spectacle city with fancy towers, and it's not, we know that the main purpose here is to, maybe someone of you said before, is to focus on the building, is to focus on the
huge scale of buildings and this complex that are very detached from the human scale. But maybe there is a claim today for spaces devoted for popular purposes and needs. I can tell that there is this claim. With Cristiano, we discussed it in our table, and he showed us some new developments that are trying to overcome this idea of metropolis detached from the human scale. Introducing density, visual variety, different uses and activities, and in a word, to create spaces that are not only devoted to cars and to consumers, but to people, to ordinary people. And of course, we know that there are so many different categories and so many different final users. So it's not easy at all because the variety is so complex. But I think that we should resist, as architect and urban planner, to this trend, to this rush of Middle East metropolis, but also Chinese metropolis and so many other countries. This rush for trying to forget their origin, their tradition, their past. And also, we should try to not look at the past in a sense of formal, in a sense of formal and superficial attitude. Cristiano showed development, Al-Sif, maybe, which is trying to look at the past, but in a formal way, with a copy-paste project that are creating let's say, fake historic context. This is not what we should do, what architecture is expected to do in a context like this. So it is really important, I agree with Anna or maybe Marco, to understand the context. This is important. And I think that the really important task is to abandon our preconceived formal ideas as Western architects, because this is the wrong way to understand a context and to try to design into this context. And maybe we should be very humble, and I'm referring to the PhD student that maybe in their future work they will study this metropolis and they will maybe try to understand and to also think about strategy. So we should be humble and understand without prejudice the city and the context in its social and economic aspects, and also I mean, in a variety which is so huge and it escapes from our understanding. It's not easy at all. So maybe we can do it together. And with Lorenzo Pignatti, we were thinking about a sort of post-Expo event, which could be a conference, online, maybe. I'm sorry, because we need funding. And maybe a publication, and maybe we can start some research about it with our PhD students. Why not? So let's hope for the future, and let me thank to Antonio Basti and Filippo Angelucci, who are the coordinators of this project, and to our colleagues, Anna Cornaro, Marco Souza, Bassam from British University, Apostolos, first try, Lina Ahmad, and someone, and Cristiano Lucchetti, of course, which was my man a Lavana, asking him to find a team for this day. So thank you very much, and hope to see you very soon. Thank you.